welcome to the 50th Mats. Let's give a little hooray for the 50th Mats. I mean, this is something to be celebrated. 50 years. We've had trucks maybe 120 years. So 50 years of trucking here in Louisville is a big deal, and congratulations to the Toby and his family and all the work that they do to put this on. I'm really excited to be here. So just quickly, who is Mike Roeth? What is NACFE? Why is he on stage trying to say something that maybe you'd be interested in? So let me start. I've been 35 years in the industry. I like to say I started my first third with Cummins, my second third with Navistar International Trucks. My third was working here at North American Council for Freight Efficiency. I helped start the organization, and now I'm starting my fourth third. I don't think it'll stop there. I mean, I love trucking. I love helping the industry be more efficient, helping to navigate a lot of crazy new technologies that maybe we look at and we go, that ain't gonna happen, And I remember the first time somebody said, here's a spoiler alert for something that's coming. When the first person had told me battery electric trucks are gonna be a thing, I remember saying, I got to be careful because this is pretty loud, but BS, that is not going to happen. A battery might be able to charge and do my phone, might do my flashlight and my clock radio, but it isn't going to haul freight. I'm here to tell you I'm wrong. I was wrong then, and I'll give you a little bit of insight as to why I think that's coming. But NACFE.org, runonless.com, these are all free. We're a nonprofit. We're not selling anything. We don't have membership. We don't have subscriptions. You can go on there. You can see a lot of cool stuff about some of these technologies I'll be talking about. So Run on Less might be a really good, fun thing. I've got some cards over here if you want to grab them when we're done. So what I'm going to do over the next 45 minutes is kind of walk through what I view, or what we at NACFE view, as some technologies that are coming fast and furious to the market. And they're not going to be for everybody. They're not going to, some will scale faster, but I categorize them into 4 areas. So we're going to walk through these 4 fairly quickly around efficiency, connected, electric, and automated. So let's talk about each one of these. And then at the end, I'm going to suggest how this might create new jobs, interesting things for your career, whether you're a driver, whether you're a technician, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a dispatcher. I've got a few ideas on what's coming that I think is exciting. Might be a little scary for us all about what's going to happen in the future. So efficient. Why should our trucks and why should we be more efficient in our operations? It's kind of simple. It's this damn thing. We burn diesel fuel. If you look back before 2000, we were at $1 diesel since 1970s. And, most of us weren't driving and buying gasoline and diesel in that 70s, time frame. But we've seen it grow. And, you can convince yourself maybe at times, if you look in the last 15 years, it got as low as $2. And at those moments, a lot of us said, all right, well, I don't have to worry about fuel. It went up, but it came down. It's going to stay down. Don't worry about it. Well, not if you fueled on your way here. I was listening to that prior panel. It's pretty easy to put $1,000 fuel in your truck right now, given $5 diesel. So this is the motivator. And, so what's going on around efficiency with respect to trucks is something like this. We went from a truck that was, badass cool, but cost a lot to operate. I mean, those air cleaners on the side of that truck cost somewhere between 1/3 to 1/2 mile per gallon. And, they look great. Those stacks look great. But at the end of the day, that's costing you a lot of money to operate that truck. So fast forward, we got into these aerodynamic trucks. We put skirts on trailers, many of them, and so forth, walking around to the right. The bottom are a couple things that I think is emerging and coming. And that is, super efficient long-haul trucks. They'll likely be diesel for a long time. But they're going to be in the 10, 11, 12 mile per gallon range. Here's the Shell Starship. I think it was at this show a few years ago. I think we'll see more and more of this for long haul and maybe some long regional haul and LTL and the like. And then I think we're going to start to look at potentially longer combination vehicles. Maybe we'll have 33-foot pups instead of 28s. Maybe we'll see more miles for double 53s or something like that. So we have plenty of power. We got the aerodynamics. We can haul the freight. We're just not legally allowed to. So a couple of thoughts there around efficiency that I think is going to change operations in the trucks as we move forward. There we go. So next one's connected. So why do we see all this connected technologies coming? And so a couple of thoughts on from me on this. So here we've got the truck connected to the shop connected to the service facility, possibly other Internet of Things that we're all connected to. Why is that important for what we're doing? I think you need 4 things to haul freight. You need a tractor, you need a trailer, you need a driver, and you need the freight. If you got all 4 of those, go. Well, we've got GPS now on basically all 4 of these. We now know where the tractor is, we know where the driver is, we know where the trailer is, and we actually know where the freight is too. So they can figure out, is the freight still being manufactured and not at the dock yet? Is it at the dock? Is it ready to go? And so I think with all of this ability to do this, and now the opportunity, you walk around the show, there's all this load matching, and other terms for that are enabled by the fact that we know where all of these elements to haul freight are. If we do that, we can be more efficient. We can get more freight on each trailer, and I think this is a given. Maybe we're a little worried about privacy. Maybe we're not sure about how all this will work, but I think it's obvious. And then we've done some work here, and I know this is a eye chart, but we believe that with all of the connected and all these solutions that are happening, that freight movement is becoming more predictable and shorter. And so the chaotic freight movement, where you're all over the country, a lot of irregular routes, out 2 and 3 weeks at a time, we think every day that's becoming just a little more organized and dedicated. It's not going to happen overnight, but with that is more return to base, more day cabs. The truck builders report that we're seeing every year a few more day cabs instead of sleepers. It's not for everybody, but getting home more often is something that drivers tell us quite often is something that they want. And so with all of that, we're kind of predicting a little more dedicated, more regional, more private carriers getting in the business of moving freight, and a little bit less in truckload. I'm going to open it up for questions here in a little bit. You can tell me whether I'm full of it or whether you maybe agree on some of these things. The next area I want to go to is electric. So I said in my start about electric trucks and battery electric trucks, and whether it's real or not, or where will it start, where will it end. So a couple of thoughts around electric. Here's an electric truck. This is I think it's maybe generation 3 of the Peterbilt 579 EV. It's battery only. So along the frame rails on the left and the right, they've basically taken everything off the rail and put batteries there. This truck with those batteries is probably a 300 to 350 mile range truck. Those batteries today are in the $50,000 range and pretty heavy. So this may not be, or probably isn't, a very practical truck for today. But what they're doing is stretching the envelope, and many of the target markets for this right now are low range, low miles per day. So think beverage and groceries and those sorts of things. But what they have is electric axles on the back. Those orange lines are the drive line of the electric truck. So that's all the high power lines going from the battery pack and up into all of the accessories up front. Yes, there's some cooling systems, but they're much smaller. There's no after treatment. There's very few liquids and hazardous materials in this truck. And that's sort of a little bit of what we see around the electric trucks that are coming, or electric heavy tractors in particular. Last year, we went and, we were kind of joking, yeah, there's electric trucks coming, but I've never seen one. You read about it in all the magazines, but is this really not happening, or is it happening? So we went out and we found 13 real world, real trucks out hauling freight today. Most of the bigger trucks in this, you can see there were 4 tractors all in California. some smaller trucks, even some vans in places like New York City and Cincinnati, Ohio, some terminal tractors. But these were real trucks hauling real freight. And we dug into them deeply. I mean, we went out and visited them. We did 91 interviews with the drivers and the maintenance people and so forth. So we really went out and understood what's happening right now around electric trucks. And let me give you a little bit of insight into what we found. And you can go on to our websites and find videos and all kinds of things. But here are the 13 truck drivers. And there's their 13 electric trucks. So, well, you can go home and say, I at least saw an electric truck. Roeth showed it to me. We got some heavy tractors. We got a Volvo VNR. We've got, Peterbilt, we said, a Freightliner E-Cascadia, some medium-duty trucks, terminal tractors, and so forth. The number, I don't know if it's the number one thing, but one of the most important things that we learned is how much the drivers love driving these electric trucks. How many people have talked to a Tesla owner or an electric car owner, and they love driving it? Now, I used to think, well, they spent a lot of money on that car, so they're going to tell me that they love it, whether they love it or not. But I've come to realize that no, these electric cars, and cars aren't trucks, but these cars are very little maintenance. Drivers love them, and we're finding that with these trucks. So much so, these guys, and we had one woman driving a terminal tractor. They said things like, I am less tired at the end of the day. They use one pedal driving because of the regenerative braking. So a lot of times that electric truck, when they take the foot off of the accelerator, it starts the braking process right away, because you can harvest the energy and regenerative braking as soon as you do that. What that does is slow the truck down, and if that's set right and the driver learns it and works with the settings, he can drive or she can drive without ever using the brake pedal. Why is that a big deal? Well, over 10, 11, 14 hours of driving and working, that can mean a more comfortable run. They all talked about how they were less tired at the end of the day, less noise, less rocking of the truck and the cab. They're really loving the truck. So electric trucks, smaller first, terminal tractors, beverage, whether they'll ever get to long haul, I don't know, but an interesting technology that's here and coming. And let me move on, I think, to, there we go, automated. So autonomous trucking, self-driving trucks. Anybody watch the movie Logan? Holy shit, that scared us all. With a bunch of trucks, just self-driving trucks running all over the freeways. And so here's another one where you look at it and you go, oh, come on, that can't happen. But, we're starting to see some instances and some ways that it could emerge. So let me walk through at least some of the things that I'm thinking about. So I went to a truck show in January in Las Vegas, and, I went to a show in Las Vegas. It wasn't a trucking show. It wasn't a freight show. It was kind of a new tech sort of show. And I wasn't sure what to expect. When I walked to the end of the aisle, and there were 10, one less than 10. There were 9 of these trucks. The one on the left is Einride, doesn't even have a cab or a windshield. And that's meant for, really low speed around warehouses and manufacturing plants and so forth. But I looked at this and I'm like, 9. And you know that every one of these companies have 100 engineers and people working on this. So I'm like, well, somebody must believe this is going to happen, because there's a lot of money being spent on it, and we'll see. So I went down to each one of them, and I'm talking to them about what are they going to do, why are they doing it, and it dawned on me that a friend of ours had developed this idea about 5 or 6 years ago, and I know this is a bit complicated, so I want to spend a couple of minutes going through it, but the idea is that right there in the middle would be the 500 or 1,000 mile run on the freeway. And that route or that trip, call it exit to exit trip, is easier to automate than anything around a city or stoplights or anything like that. It's much more simple for the engineers to create that truck that's going to lane keep, automatic brake, avoid cars, avoid this, avoid that on the freeway than in the cities. And as that happens, then, and the red one has a driver, the yellow one is an idea that you wouldn't have a driver, or you wouldn't have a cab at all. It's basically a little power unit. And I like what Steve did here a few years ago, where possibly this will emerge as the following truck would not have a driver in it, and the forward truck would have a driver in it. So one driver's driving two trucks. Maybe the second truck does have a cab and a sleeper, and the driver's asleep out of his hours of service, and the front, and then they switch or something like that. Now, that requires two trucks going to the same place. But the other thing that happens here, and this gets back to kind of a grouping of these technologies I'm talking about, is what happens on the front and the back. So you could call these two drayage parts of this whole freight movement. So on the outbound side, you may have an electric truck with a driver, day cab. He's going from the plant to that exit or that hub, delivering that trailer to that autonomous truck that then takes it, and then the same thing happens at the other end. So this makes sense to me when I think about technology coming that maybe I don't think is going to happen, but could in a way that makes some sense. One other thing, because I couldn't help myself, the gamers in the room, there's this idea that's percolating around that yellow truck I was talking about, or maybe that red one. So maybe the truck has a cab, maybe it doesn't, but we could have some remote drivers helping to drive these trucks. That might get the truck from the plant or the distribution center to the freeway, or it might just be something where along the freeway the truck shut down because maybe a door's open, maybe a strap's come loose, and it parks that truck, and then a remote technician or a remote driver might then be able to operate it to an exit or something like that. Another thing to keep in mind that I threw in here is, we're limited to 53-foot trailers for hauling cargo, and where you cube out, if you could get something, you could have a much bigger cargo area if you didn't have that cab to deal with. So possibly there's more cargo that could be hauled with these. And since it's the 50th anniversary of MATS, I was thinking about this. I mean, this has been done. It was done like 50 years ago. This is a strict trailer, actually, that was built. Now, they had a person laying underneath that in that cab driving, but maybe there's something to be learned from history. So, can you move that slide forward for me? Okay, so I want to close with now, what are some career opportunities along these different technologies? So first, on efficient. It wouldn't seem like this efficient tractor would change much in our world, but I think, I was thinking about this, and some of my team helped me with it. At these fuel prices, the driver does affect fuel economy, and we're seeing fleets add incentives to drivers to help drive more efficiently and save money for the fleet. So I think that could change, something that changes in your career as you move forward. Longer combination vehicles and teams, I think with that fuel price, with freight demands, we'll see more of that. Technicians changing, fuel testing, and the like. So I put a question mark at the bottom because I don't know where all this is going, but I do think these more efficient trucks will change some of what we're doing. Now let's get into some of the more meaty ones. Connected. So when we look at connected, and the proposal or the hypothesis that I put out there that said we might have more organized freight, I think we're going to see more LTL and dedicated. The public fleets are saying that their dedicated business is growing. And so, I think as you look at your career going forward, whether you're a driver, whether you're somebody supporting the industry, if you're an engineer at a truck OEM thinking about what the day cab should look like, maybe it's different given more, I didn't even mention slip seating. These assets are really expensive, and so maybe we'll see more trucks if they're returning to base. One driver drives it during the day, a different one at night. I think these connected with all these technologies and sensors and all that, the technician job is getting different, and difference means opportunities for folks. And then these next couple, I think, get into kind of what we're seeing here, and that is that growth in warehousing and freight, and so the idea of brokers and remote schedulers, people who are scheduling and brokerage from their basement or from their homes. I think those are opportunities. And so if you were a truck driver you get a lot of this, and those might be a different career path for you than maybe you've thought of before. Now let's go into electric. So, I mentioned this e-truck drivers. I tell you, those 13, I mean, they wouldn't go back to a diesel. At Anheuser-Busch in LA, I met what I think might be the first CDL truck driver who never drove a diesel truck. He came in, they were putting him in an electric truck right away. There were 8 electric trucks at that Anheuser-Busch dealership or distribution center. By the way, if you've never seen, I think we saw 60,000 cases of beer leave overnight there. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I think, I've said it a number of times, I think this electric truck driving is going to be a good experience, and I think we'll see that emerge. Other areas for people that know trucking, so whether you're a fleet person or whatever, we're going to be doing a lot of charging construction. So a lot of chargers are being put into trucking depots, into warehouses. There's a lot, that's going to require, where do we put them? Do we put them at the docks? Do we put them along a fence? What we found is it's really good to put the chargers near a driver break room so that when they get out of the truck, they charge it. So every minute that truck can be charged, it's charging and really helps the range. So there are jobs like that I think for those who know trucking, there's these new jobs that are emerging that need your knowledge and information and experience, but you got to be willing to do something a little bit different. Charging hub support technicians, trainers. You can only imagine what the maintenance shops are going to look like. We're going to be getting away from hazardous material, oils, lubricants, mechanics, and we're going to be getting into high voltage, plug-and-play electronic control modules. All of that will require a different skill set on technicians. Some will like it, some won't. But that's that's kind of the fact of change. And then I'll close with automation and automated trucks. This might be, if you think 20 years into the future, this might be where there could be the biggest effect on driving and on operations. And so what we see here, to my schematic or my diagram a little bit ago, is more local drivers. So I see, that automated truck getting to that exit ramp, and literally a truck driver going and getting in that cab, taking that freight to the warehouse, bringing that truck back to the freeway, and letting it go on its way. And so there'll be more movement around local drivers instead of the long haul. With that, there'll be what I call tractor repositioning, and then a little later, these launchers and receivers. So bear with me a minute. I mean, we still need to do pre-trip inspections. We still need to make sure that the load is right. We got to make sure the tires are inflated, and just do a general walk around. So what these automation companies are thinking about is that we will have launchers and receivers. We'll have people that will be looking over this equipment and working with the computers to say, yep, this is good to go, launch the truck, same time receiving trucks. That takes people. That takes people at those hubs doing that. And then all kinds of other things, including that remote CDL. There's already talk about that being a real thing, whether it's with the government, FMCSA and others, or some other people starting to think about what does remote operation of trucks. I know it sounds crazy, right? I mean, I think, but that's already being discussed, how we make that work in a positive way. So I'm going to stop there. I don't know how much time we got. We got a few minutes, but I'll just take any questions. I mean, any questions on the technologies, any questions on these jobs? There's got to be somebody with some, tell me I'm full of it because of this, or I really like what you said about that. What's on your mind? Yeah. Around the high power and everything. Yeah, so the questions around electric trucks and the effect on, the driver and specifically the high power, you're standing on top of 600-700 volts, all these batteries. That's been studied pretty extensively, and I wouldn't say that we haven't said that it's completely eliminated, but there's not a whole lot of concern about that as the people that are developing it and moving forward. Clearly, those big orange lines and how we get, like the EMS folks state police, others who are coming upon an accident with an electric truck. How do we know what this, that, and the other? I've asked some pretty, I think, tough questions of some of the truck builders around that. And they're saying, the similar things that they do with diesel and gas shutoffs or cutoffs or whatever they call it, they're doing with this high voltage. So, we'll see. But it's on their radar, and it's not something that too many people are worried about. What else? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So the question, and I'll try to reword it as tough a question as you just said, is when is this going to happen, right? When is electric and when is autonomous going to happen? And it will matter into what business you're in a lot. I mean, the trucking industry is so varied and diverse, right? I always say that for every idea, there's a application for it right now. So heavy-duty tractors. People say, well, heavy-duty tractors, that's not going to be electric. Well, terminal tractors, yard dogs, goats, mules, I mean, they operate around the yards. They're Class 8 heavy tractors. And we've studied them. I think they're ready for electrification. Like, they don't need big battery backs. They literally are parking those right by the driver, the driver brake area. They're either plugged in or moving all the time. And if they are, they can do pretty small battery packs and not be that expensive and get the job done. But let me approach like the big parts of the market, right? So, I mentioned beverage, short haul, 150 miles of range. Today, I can see us at a place where those trucks are they're not affordable right now. I mean, they're like twice the cost of a diesel day cab, but costs keep coming down. Scale will really help. The trucking companies are working hard on lowering the cost of some of these early trucks. So in that 150-mile range tractor, which there aren't very many of them, I get that, but soon, 2, 3, 4 years, we'll start to see those emerge. And then when we get into like the 300-mile range electric truck, that's going to take some work, and it's out a little bit farther. But the 400 or 500-mile truck, Elon Musk at Tesla says he's got one. We haven't seen it yet, to really understand it. Well, we've seen it. We haven't, they haven't delivered on it yet. But we'll see if that could change the game. On autonomy, the same thing. I think that there will be some low-speed autonomy around the yards and off the road, and then this exit to exit. That autonomy those trucks open up a few things. I mean, we wouldn't want to drive them at 50 mile an hour on the freeway. But the fact that we could drive them a little bit slower, save some fuel, maybe drive them in the 63, 4 mile an hour range, maybe there's some things that I think could help there. But that whole piece has got a lot of work to do. It'll early on, it'll just be the technologies will help augment the driver. So there, it's probably 5, 6, 7 years out before I think we really see much. And it'll start on the long, lonely highway, right? I mean, they're testing in Texas, Arizona, places where, the autonomy. And these state laws actually help us here because each state can kind of say, all right, on I-10 between here and there, we're allowing electric trucks, or we're allowing automated trucks without a driver for this and that and the other. And so that's why I say that areas, market segments, it'll start and grow, and that's a good thing for us because then we can learn from those areas. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is infrastructure to support. I think you're talking about this automated driving piece. So do we need a truck-only automated lane and so forth? So some of the early ideas had, like a wire in the road that this would follow, like the Disney World rides and all that kind of stuff. And the one thing that all of the truck developers and other people say is if you're relying on the government to build infrastructure, you're screwed. We can't fix potholes and this, that, and the other. Matter of fact, I'm going to a meeting in June with like 18 or 20 state DOT folks, and one of the topics is how do we paint the lines for these trucks? Because we do need lines painted. I mean, these automated trucks work with radar, well, I think they call it LiDAR, cameras, and other things, and we at least need lines on the road, right? So there is nothing in the infrastructure bill that I know of that there may be some money in there for line painting because that's important, but there's nothing in there to support automated trucks. There is money in the $5-6 billion for electrification and chargers in the infrastructure bill. But I would summarize it to say that I would go so far as to say that if the solutions need infrastructure, a special lane or this, that, and the other, it won't happen. So other than painting lines, if they can make these trucks safe and do the job over the next decade or two with only painting lines, then it's got a chance. If it needs more than that, yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, so the questions on weather conditions, you guys are clearly getting the right ones. I mean, so there's so like Too Simple, all these companies are developing the autonomous trucks. Right next to it, they are developing a support system for them. And part of that will be both algorithms around when and when not you could operate autonomously, and then having people make decisions too. So weather overlays, and that's why for a while we will still have a driver in the truck, but maybe they won't be driving at certain times. And it's possible that you got high winds, you got rain, you got this, that, and the other, where they now that truck cannot operate autonomously, and the driver needs to take control. I mean, one of the interesting things that I'm going to keep watching is, the government's interest in autonomous. Would they open up the hours of service? So could you get, if that truck was being driven autonomously for 3 hours in the middle of the shift, could that be 3 hours off the clock for the driver? I don't know, but that's something that's being considered and could open up opportunities. Anything else? This is fun. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so the question is, I mean, what are drivers thinking about automated trucks, and in particular, maybe in the kind of like this next few phases. So that's a really good question, and sometimes I get asked, well, sometimes I respond to questions like that by saying, well, we've been automating trucks for decades, right? I mean, we automated steering, we automated shifting finally. We've been automating. This isn't anything new. And every one of, I shouldn't say this is new because now we're talking about significant automation. So don't take that wrong. But each one of those, the driver had to deal with. We had to learn. I remember the first time I hit the cruise control button. I'm a little older than you. And I hit the cruise control button, and I'm like, ooh, what's going to happen? The same things happen. Automatic braking. The first time, your heavy-duty truck goes through one of those automatic braking events, that's a big deal. But you learn it, right? So they're learning it. The manufacturers are bringing the technologies that are more comfortable or more, expected as they bring these technologies. It's like any change. Some are going to hate it, not deal with it. If a fleet brings these trucks and you don't like it, you can leave, go to another trucking firm that doesn't. But if it makes the job easier, more comfortable, safer in their minds, many will look at each one. And I would say just keep giving feedback, because these, the people developing the technologies, the truck builders putting them in, they're all trying to make it work across all of it, the driver, the maintainer, the people building it, cost, weight, all those things. So it's all over the map. But if it's a good solution, it's going to find its way with the customers or the fleets and the drivers that want it. Yes. Yeah. Insurance. So what about insurance? This is a really good question. I don't know. But there are new insurance companies that are starting up to only insure automated trucks. Now we've got these different levels of automation, so they're going to be working on that. And this is a conversation that wasn't happening a couple of years ago and is really happening now. And so I don't think there's a solution on how insurance will be handled here, as well as a lot of other things that are out there. But it's starting to get on some radar. I mean, another one that's similar to that is on electric vehicles, the fuel tax. So people are going, oh my God, if all these electric cars and electric trucks happens, we won't be able to fund our freeway construction or any of this construction because the fuel tax goes away. I gotta believe that'll get fixed, right? The government's not gonna. So if autonomous trucking in these different levels is emerging, somebody will figure out the insurance implications, I think. Yeah, so the question is about the big companies self-insuring. That might be actually an easier scenario because they can handle the effect of on the insurance piece. Really good question. How are we doing on time? I quit wearing a watch years ago. Is it quarter till yet? Still got 10 minutes? Oh man, that was fast. What else? What's the one thing I said that you're like, no? Is it around autonomy? Is it around, the fact that in our lives, would you ever be driving up I-65 and look and see, a 53-foot trailer driving down the road without anybody in the seat or no cab on the truck? I mean, to me, that's, of all the things I said, I would say that's probably the thing Yeah, so what's the public take on automated trucks? One data point is some of these automated car accidents, and absolutely worried about the technology making decisions. We're the human mind and ability to react and do things is extraordinary, right? So they're worried. On the other hand, and you can tell I'm being a little bit careful how I talk about it, but let me give you some data. People between the ages of 16 and 30, there's like 30% of that population doesn't even have a driver's license. They don't want to drive. They want their friend to drive. They want to go on an Uber. They want somebody else. If we do that, we can, be online. We can be connected if we're not driving. So I think, I said on the other hand, I think that's so I think there's a movement to not want to drive. Still be mobile. We still want to go places and do things, but we just don't want to drive. So I think there's so I think those two polar opposites occur in all of us thinking about this. And so, cars versus trucks, there's definitely always been the bigger the amount of mass going down the freeway at speed, the more impact, the more effect. So those are a couple thoughts on your question. It's a really good question. I don't know. We've got a group that we've been working with called PAVE, P-A-V. I don't know what it stands for, but it's all around education on autonomous cars and trucks. PAV, if it's really interest to you, that's their whole mission. Well, thank you very much for your time. Oh, yep, sir. Yeah, so the questions are like 2030. What's going to be the amount of electric cars versus gasoline cars? I do believe, and I'll get to a piece of trucking in the question too, but we're going to be in the 30%, 40% new cars being electric by that time frame. That's a lot. Norway's at 85%. Now, I don't know what's special about Norway other than I know they have a lot of renewables and so forth. And I don't mean to bring that up as just like because what's Norway, right? But apologies to any Norwegians in the room. You know, a big number. I mean, I think we're headed to electric in cars, particularly where you can plug them in at your home and just go and be fairly simple. The truck analogy to that is these e-commerce vans. So these Amazon vans, UPS, FedEx, the federal government, these small delivery vans that have grown with e-commerce during the pandemic, et cetera, man, you know, there's a lot of reasons they can be electric. And we believe that the demand from those companies to go electric rather than gas and diesel is going to be high, and really getting batteries in the supply chain of chips and batteries and might be the limiting factor between now and 2030. So, yeah. Yeah, so the question's around we're seeing a whole different distribution model, a lot more warehouses and things. I mean, when I got out of my house after the pandemic and started traveling the highway, I was like, OMG, there's a warehouse being built. You guys that are any of these drivers, I mean, I-65 coming, I live up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I drove down last night. I mean, all around Indianapolis, there are a huge amount of warehouses being built. One thing I always think about is, are they paying attention to, is that a good site if they go electric with their forklifts and their yard tractors and their tractors coming in? So I don't know. I think, you know, stores are being replaced by warehouses. Deliveries are going to our homes or to lockers or something. I mean, that ship has kind of sailed. And now the whole middle mile is kind of the term for it now. That middle mile of warehouse to warehouse, distribution centers, fulfillment centers, whatever they all call it, we're all trying to figure out how to best move freight there. And that's like the example of what I proposed, that freight's getting more dedicated. It might not be the right term for this, but more organized, more predictable. Part of that's around these dynamics. Manufacturing is kind of going a bit similar too, not just the e-commerce side. Do you have a question up front here? Can the power grid handle it? So you guys are on to the top 10 questions here around electrification. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a power person at all. Here's a couple things I think I know, or people that are smart in this that I hear. One, solar and wind is becoming very inexpensive and a great solution, and it's going to increase our power generation. Now we're taking coal power plants out, so is that a you know, give one take one or not? But the other thing that's going on that will open up electricity is efficiency. Things like turning off lights, turning off air conditioning during the day, and those, you know, those things are real and they're happening. And whether it's you know, you think about air conditioning in a huge building or a mall or something. I mean, if we can, you know, just so there's a lot of talk about that. I'd close with electric cars, electric trucks. People have compared that's about as much extra electricity on the grid as was air conditioning in the 50s. So, you know, we went from not air conditioning buildings. How many people went to grade school with air conditioning? You know, everybody does now. I didn't. You know, that big increase in demand on the grid from air conditioning back in the 50s is about the scale we're talking about here. So we did it once. You know, now, having said that, it ain't going to be easy. I mean, you know, we got blackouts, and you know, I'm not trying to paint this as a real solved issue. Yeah, that clean energy is coming from the sun and the wind, and that's cost effective, even without thinking about its environmental benefits. Hey, Henry. All right. Well, one more. Yeah. So the questions about hybrids in trucking. Well, I hate to keep answering some of these questions about here's what happened in cars and whether that's going to be for trucks. Because don't get me wrong, cars aren't trucks. I get that. I've been at this a while. But, you know, with the battery cost, weight, performance improvements that we've seen, which is extraordinary. I mean, even the battery experts didn't think we'd be here in 2022 5 years ago or 10 years ago. With that, hybrid cars are, the movement to all electric has really taken a lot of volume away and attention from hybrids. Now, there'll still be some hybrids, but in the trucking world, I see and kind of the same thing. One of the reasons that I believe battery electric trucks will find their way in these shorter urban and some of these shorter hauls is how simple the powertrain is. No after treatment, none of this, none of that, and others. And as soon as you do a hybrid, you have everything from the internal combustion engine. You have all the new complexity and challenge of an electric car, and you just went from a somewhat complex diesel and gasoline vehicle to a more complex hybrid. So we'll see. Yes. Yeah, so this maybe is number 8 of my 10 questions I was hoping not to get on battery electric trucks. The questions around recycling batteries and are we creating a bigger problem that we don't know how to deal with? That is a real concern, and it is a real thing. Because now we've got the battery developments and all the things I've been talking about here for a while, that is a problem that's come to the top. A lot of discussion about how we just change out and replace individual cells or individual modules, not the whole battery pack. There are companies now recycling. Batteries are very recyclable today, in other areas. And so, I don't think it's a solved deal, but a lot of people working on a battery. Now, when you say people are working on it, that means they don't have it all solved. I get that, but we'll see. We'll see. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, so this is another question around the ability of the utilities and the grid. It's just how do I get power to that spot, right? And how do I get a lot of power to that spot? Because many of these locations, many of these warehouses have very little electricity demand. You might have air conditioning in the offices. They might have a few forklifts, but we're talking about much bigger power to charge these trucks. And you're exactly right. I mean, we're hearing 9 months to 2 years to get those chargers in, get all the substations and all that work done. So where fleets are looking at electrification, they got to get into the planning early, and that's just something we got to learn. As an industry to learn how to do, and to have utilities that are open to it. I was with a utility the other day, and they were like, we're not, this is going to be hard, and this, that, and the other. I said, come on, you're replacing petroleum. You've got a ginormous revenue opportunity. I mean, to move cars and trucks from oil and gas to electric. Yes, sir. Yeah. So the question is around railroads and what can we learn from locomotives that have been through a lot. I mean, they went. One gentleman on my team, Rick Mihalik, he talks about how fast they went from steam to diesel, really pretty quickly. A long time ago. So I think trucking and rail, they got this love-hate relationship, but I do think there is a lot to be learned around from each other. And I think if we did learn, and I don't know, maybe we could find ways to even cooperate more in sort of the intermodal world around a lot of what I talked about earlier around connected can really help. So, hey, I want to thank you. This has really been a lot of fun. I learned a few things. Hope it was worth your time. If you want to grab a card or a postcard up there to look up anything we talked about, thank you. Have a good day.